to our first topic here. We are going to talk about some games, but we also want to reference the Big Ten went 17-1 in week one, Zach. 2-1 versus Power Four conferences. We will not name the one team. I think you talked about them plenty in your podcast, Zach. You were kind of getting emotional while talking about the team that had the one loss. I mean, if you want to talk about it, we can. But in addition to Big Ten going 17-1, 2-1 versus Power Four conferences, the SEC went 13-3, and they were 3-2 versus Power Four conferences, so more wins, but also more losses. The ACC is 15-5, 2-3 versus Power Four conferences, and the Big 12 is 14-2, 1-1 versus Power Four conferences. Zach, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but just give me your quick thoughts on the Big Ten going 17-1. And I mean, does this look like the best conference in college football after week one?
Well, just to go back to the one coach that screwed it up, Sky U Pod admitted that they'd rather have Mike Norvell over PJ Fleck. So
yeah.
If that doesn't tell you how things are in Minneapolis right now, I don't know what is, because Mike Norvell is in a dumpster fire right now. I don't know if they're the best, but they certainly had a better showing than they've had in years past. I think, there have been several times where I have tweeted out or on Facebook have said, oh, week one and week two is where the Big Ten title hopes go to die. That was not this. And there were plenty of opportunities for it. Like, Fresno State is a decent group of five team that Michigan played. Obviously, USC, LSU could have been an SEC highlight game for that conference. Penn State could, I think several people I think were curious about Penn State going to Morgantown. And the Big Ten really acquitted itself nicely. And, Minnesota, I went in hard on them. It's not like UNC is a bad P4 team. I thought Minnesota should have won that game with their roster, but UNC is probably going to finish middle of the pack in the ACC, and the Big Ten, and Minnesota is probably going to finish middle to lower tier of the pack of the Big Ten. So overall, the Big Ten didn't lose any games that they shouldn't have lost. Well, they lost a toss-up game that they should have won, but it was a toss-up.
Right.
They didn't, have any ridiculous losses, and they won games that people I don't think many people expected USC to beat LSU. And I think that really carries a lot of weight. So overall, I think it's a great sign for the Big Ten. And I think probably the better sign is I think the best teams are showing that they need some time to gel. And I think they will, because you have a lot of turnover and you have new faces at quarterback for a lot of these teams. So aside from Penn State, who I thought looked very good on Saturday, the best teams, I think the best is yet to come.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely had some struggles with Oregon and Michigan. Thankfully for Michigan fans, they did turn it on at the end of the game. They had that late pass to Colston Loveland and the Will Johnson interception. Will Johnson was trying to jump those routes all game long. It almost felt like he was pressing a little bit, trying to my offense is not scoring very much, so I need to go out there and try to produce some points for my team. I don't think that's the best way for Will Johnson to play. I think you need to just trust your offense and trust that your defense can stop the opponent. However, that is what it seemed like to me. I'll be interested to see what happens this week against Michigan and Texas, because I think that will be a much better barometer for the team and seeing all of that play out. However, for me, you had a lot of really good stuff from some of the middle of the pack teams to lower teams. You had Rutgers and Illinois looking very good. You had teams like I said, Michigan and Oregon. They were not terrible, but things did not look good, especially for Oregon. The final score did not look good versus an FCS team. You also had UCLA almost losing to Hawaii. Yep. I know it was at Hawaii, but I mean, there were portions of that game where you thought Hawaii, wow, they're going to pull this off. They're going to get this win. Thankfully for Deshaun Foster, he does not lose his opening game for UCLA. However, I think at the end of the day, USC and Penn State kind of saves it all. I mean, USC goes to Vegas, beats LSU. That is a huge statement win over the other best conference in college football in the SEC. I think you took care of business where you needed to take care of business with Penn State taking care of West Virginia. To me, it's going to be decided a lot in week 2. I mean, we have some pretty crucial games coming up: Michigan, Texas, Illinois, Kansas, Nebraska, Colorado, Iowa, Iowa State, Northwestern, Duke. Those are going to be some pretty crucial games. I think if the Big Ten goes 4-1 here, I think you have a pretty good case. It's just the problem is if that one is Michigan losing to Texas. That's going to be one of the biggest issues because everybody looks at the top of the conference. They don't look at Illinois and Northwestern and some of those other ones as much. But if Michigan loses to Texas, I think you have a much tougher case to say you are the best conference in college football.
I think it depends on if Michigan loses, how they lose.
That too.
Because I think a lot of people think Texas is the cream of the crop, them and Georgia. If Michigan gets blown out, then I totally agree. Like that really does take the wind out of the sails. But if it's like a 3-point loss and it's Quinn
Describe
Ewers
blown out. Two touchdowns? Is that blown out?
Yeah, I think 2 touchdowns, which admittedly on Thursday you'll find out my prediction and kind of picking them to lose by 2+ touchdowns. Spoiler alert.
Don't give it away, Zach. Make sure people have to tune in to hear it.
That's fair. Well, I was gonna say I'm spoiling it on your show, but I'm not going to be here on Thursday, so you can have a completely different.
Yeah, Chris and I will talk about it.
Yeah. You guys are Buckeyes, though. You guys are never mind. No spoilers.
I'm pretty impartial. I think I can do a pretty good job of separating my fandom. That's what I typically do on here.
Yeah,
not always the best, but I try.
I can too. I try to as well. But I do think that game is crucial. I think to that point, though. What really becomes problematic is like Iowa and Northwestern and like all those, like if they all lose, then it's like, oh gosh, here we go. And granted, it's not Oregon and it's not Ohio State and it's not Penn State. So I think the 3 out of 4 teams that you expect to be at the top, they are unscathed. But it does cast doubt.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. I want to bring up one more thing before we move on. I was looking at PFF today, and I was looking at their power ratings and their power rankings, and for their remaining strength of schedules, the Big Ten has a number of teams on that list of the top 10 of the remaining strength of schedules. Zach, can you guess how many Big Ten teams are in the top 10 of the remaining strength of schedule? So that does not include this past game. That says the games going forward. Yeah. How many of the 10 are Big Ten teams?
Well, I would imagine USC, UCLA, Purdue are in there. Oregon is probably in there, and maybe Wisconsin or Ohio State. So I'll say 5.
8.
8?
Yes, there are 8 teams in there. Texas and Mississippi are the other 2 from the SEC. You have Illinois, you have Purdue, USC, UCLA, a number of teams in there. Penn State and Ohio State are at 15 and 14. Those are the next highest ones after that. Illinois rounds out the top 10 at 10th. But, I mean, with a lot of the conference schedule remaining, I think that's pretty telling that that the Big Ten has 8 of the 10 remaining strength of schedules left in college football. Now, that could change next week. We'll see. Yep. But at least the way it looks now, that is pretty impressive. All right, Zach.